So we're going to have to keep this one down more or less to regular times here. So I'm going to start moving on through the questions for Stress Free Lounge episode 52. That's amazing. So starting with Stephen Sopko, who says, will the virtual president pardon or prosecute Edward Snowden? That is a great question. Edward Snowden, as you know, is the whistleblower who basically defected to Russia, and God knows where he's trying to go to Brazil now with a lot of stuff. And Snowden blew the whistle on this NSA stuff and has apparently also revealed an awful lot of secrets. I got to tell you, I have very, very mixed feelings about this. I know a lot of you don't have mixed feelings about it. The answer to that question is, I think in a case like this, I'll just give you my gut reaction. That's a very interesting question. I haven't thought it through yet. So I'll just give you my off the top of my head reaction. If I was virtual president, I would prosecute Edward Snowden to the fullest extent of the law. I'd get the toughest conviction I could get out of him, and then I'd probably pardon him. And the reason I say that is because by virtually any definition, he's a traitor. He's given secrets to the enemy. He's given vital information to the enemy. He's, by any account, a guy who has taken national security secrets of the United States of America and sent them over to our arch enemies, and we are going to pay an enormous price for this. People may die as a result of it. Likely they will. And that is treason. There's no other way to spin it. That's treason, and the penalty for treason is death. And honestly, we don't even begin to scratch the surface, I think, of the size of this intelligence leak. So on the one hand, I am right there, like that, just exactly like that. And now I'll give you the counter argument. I think I'd prosecute him to the full extent of law, try to get the death penalty, and then if I got the death penalty, I would commute it and I'd make him serve, 5 years, 10 years, something like that. The reason I would pardon him or reduce his sentence is this, and it's actually kind of an interesting symmetry. I've said this before and I'll say it again. There is nothing that can destroy this country from without. Nothing. Terrorists can do a lot of damage. Terrorists with nuclear weapons, can do very serious damage. Giving the secrets of things like our encryption stuff, the acoustic signature of our submarines, all of this other stuff is tremendously damaging, and can hurt this country and will hurt this country in enormous ways. But I'll tell you something, and I believe this from the bottom of my heart. There's only one thing that can actually kill America, actually kill it. And it's not even an economic collapse, because the idea of America can survive an economic collapse. But the fundamental idea of America, the fundamental reason we're here, you put aside all the economic reasons we're here, the fundamental reason we're here is because this is a country and it's an experiment in the idea of being able to do what you want to do, say what you want to say, think what you want to think. And it's this reactor of ideas, and the freedom, it's not the physical freedom to get on your motorcycle and drive someplace. That's all secondary. The entire essence of America is the intellectual ability to think and say what you damn well please. And so the only thing that can destroy America as America exists, at least in my mind, is for Americans to reach the point where they get to the place, and they're at this place now, where you hear them say, we can't really talk about that, or you shouldn't say that on the phone, or I'm going to change my voter registration or something, or somebody's listening to this. When we become a secret police state, when every American not only has his speech suppressed, because suppression of speech is catastrophic, but it's deeper than that. When your speech is suppressed, your thought is suppressed, and your actions are suppressed. And so the idea that the federal government is spying on every single American, and every single American knows it, and every single American is now monitoring themselves and watching what they say and living in a perpetual state of low-grade fear of saying what's on their mind, that is a bigger threat than China, Russia, Al-Qaeda, and all of it put together, in my opinion. All of it put together. All of it is much, much, much less dangerous to this country than what the NSA is doing and what this out-of-control government is doing. When they've weaponized the IRS, and when the NSA is basically opening billions of emails a day in direct violation of the Fourth Amendment that says we should be protected, we are secure in our papers, electronic papers, in the same way that the speech is electronic. I'm not shouting at you from a town crier position in the middle of a town square. When they are harvesting billions of emails a day and texts, and the Fourth Amendment in the Bill of Rights says that we are protected against this kind of unreasonable search and seizure, except when there is a judge present and oaths and affirmations are taken. Billions and billions of oaths and affirmations a day, apparently, are being done in some giant underground judge farm that they have with what? 7.5 million, 25, 30 million judges down there hooked up to machines just swearing oaths and affirmations to open every single email and every single text. No, this is the end of America. And that's why I would pardon him. Because what he did was make this a news story. If Snowden had just been a regular whistleblower, if he'd just been a guy at the NSA who had said, hey, they're doing this, we never would have heard of Snowden. They would have brushed that news story up, and the government and everybody else would have just basically made it go away the way they always do. It wouldn't have been a story, wouldn't have been a big deal, would have been just some nut lunatic talking about the tinfoil hat brigade. But because he had the leverage of the damage that he could do, because he had the leverage of the information that he had, you couldn't ignore Snowden. And since you couldn't ignore Snowden, you couldn't ignore the NSA. And since you can't ignore this problem on some level, I believe he may have saved the country by bringing this to our attention. I'm sorry, that's how I feel. I do feel he's a traitor. I do. And you're going to have to go a long way down the line to find people who are more militant about protecting the security of this country and who understand what treason is. But at the same time, and this is the thing that's so remarkable about this case, at the same time as being a traitor, he is also, in my opinion, an enormous patriot. Enormous patriot. Isn't that weird? Isn't it just awful that you have to get to this place? Because to whatever you want to say about Snowden, and I know he brings a lot of emotions on one side or another, what he did took courage, took some kind of guts to do that. And whether or not he did it for egotistical purposes, whether or not he did it to damage the country first and this is fallout, or whether he did it because he felt that the threat of this spying on the American people was a bigger threat than anything else. In other words, I don't know his motive. I don't know the inside of his heart. But he has made the American people aware of what's going on, and it's pissed the American people off, and that is a blessing. If we had not been aware of it now, if we'd waited another 10 years or 20 years or 30 years, would we have been able to wake up about this? And somebody wrote something in the comments, Winston Smith Room 101 again. I think it's being a little snarky there, but I really want to say this. I want to get this crystal clear. I don't think the NSA is irrelevant. I don't think the NSA needs to be shut down. I'm in favor. I understand how the world works today. I understand how nuclear terrorism works, and I understand how these connections work, and I don't want to see airliners exploding over the Pacific Ocean at 4 o'clock a.m., 17 of them simultaneously, which is what was in effect, and we stopped them through people like the NSA. So I don't know why this is so hard to understand for some people, and I'm sure most of you feel the same way as I do. The National Security Agency and the Central Intelligence Agency are designed to protect the American people from foreign powers, from violence directed against the American people by foreign powers. And I'm not so naive to understand that that means that we can only monitor things overseas. I understand that given a country as open to immigration as we are, that there are very, very porous borders, and that many of these threats that are serious threats, that are very serious threats, reside in the United States, and they need to be investigated, and you can't just go kick the doors down. You have to get these information threads together. I understand that. Where they went off the rails was when they stopped limiting their searches to people who were either known terrorists or connected to terrorists. Once they started just harvesting information of people who are innocent, they crossed a line. And because they live in such a bubble, these patriots in the NSA, because most of them are, virtually all of them are, they're the unknown, quiet people that work without glory in dark rooms and have repeatedly caught these people before they could act. They catch them all the time. So I don't want to sound like I'm down on them for this, but somebody has lost their way. And this is not unusual when you find people who have lost their way. How many times do we see this? Isn't this is the way that we always get into trouble, is when people with good motives try to do the right thing, and in their zeal, they just lose their way. Somebody somewhere must have said, well, if we do this, if we open up every single American's email and text, we can keep people free. Sorry, that's not what I meant to say. We can keep them safe. Well, then certainly can make the case. But safe from what? Safe from what? Safe from the people that want to destroy this, the essence of what America was built on? Yeah, that's right. We're trying to protect America from terrorists and Chinese and cyber attacks and all this other stuff. Okay, then watch the Chinese and watch the terrorists. Don't watch the people you're trying to defend, because when you are watching the people that you're trying to defend and you are intimidating them, you have not only outlived your usefulness, you're doing more harm than good. And I'm way behind on these virtual presidency things. I've been so underwater. I think the next one I'll do is, I've got one on surveillance. And my response is the virtual president. That's the only one of the 11 where I'm actually furious. I'm actually furious. I have to tell you, the first take of that, I couldn't get through it. I was so choked up. I was so angry. And so my suggestion I think I'll release this next, in the virtual presidency thing on surveillance is, number one, we're going to shut these programs down, and we're going to stop spying on the American people. But we do have to spy on some people. So the question is, who do we spy on, and who decides? And my solution, because I like rhetorical solutions that are interesting, I said this is such an egregious violation of faith on the part of the government. The American people are now so suspicious of their own government that how can we trust an oversight committee? Who can we trust to sort this stuff out? And my suggestion was that I would, as a virtual president, I would convene a special panel. And the panel would consist of 535 Americans, one selected by absolutely at random from each congressional district in the country, and then 2 American citizens selected completely at random, 2 from each state in the union. And I know many of you realize that that's how our Congress is set up. But the problem is Congress is the one that dropped the ball. If Congress was doing their job, they would have, this never would have happened. So I'd go out and I would randomly select from the phone book or from the voter rolls 435 Americans, 1 from each congressional district, another 100 Americans, 2 from each state. I would basically reproduce the Congress of the United States of America with citizens who've been taken randomly right off the streets, not these people that want to be there forever, just regular citizens. And then I would sit there with these 535 people, understanding that many of them are not capable of having a security clearance, and understanding that you've got a pretty porous sieve there. And I would basically sit down with them in a room with the NSA executives, with the civil libertarian lawyers, with people on all different sides of the thing. And I would trust the American people to do the right thing. I would trust that panel of the American people to say, this we can allow, and this we won't allow. And I'd take their advice. Because I think 535 randomly selected Americans would do a much, much better job of deciding what's safe and what's unfree than the good people who've lost their way in that agency, and the people in Congress who've fundamentally, as usual, criminally forfeited their oath to protect and defend this country and the Constitution of this country. So there's no congressional oversight, so I'd convene a little Congress just for this particular issue. And once we had it done, we will get to the place where people start feeling a little more confidence again, and then we'll see about dissolving that little commission.